in 2009, when Megan Fox was at the height of her popularity, a household name now off the back of 2 massive Transformers movies, she managed to land a leading role in a teen horror known as Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body is about Needy, a mousy, bookish girl who, for reasons she doesn't even quite understand, is best friends with the coolest, hottest, most popular girl in school, the titular Jennifer. The two have been inseparable since early childhood, and although Jennifer occasionally seems to take Needy for granted, Needy is still incredibly grateful for her friendship. One night, while the two are hanging out at a rock bar so Jennifer can flirt with the lead singer of a band she fancies, Needy overhears the band talk about Jennifer's prospective virginity in a creepy and weird way. During the band's set, a fire breaks out and the two friends have to climb out the window to save their lives. Jennifer is in shock, and it's at this point that the creepy band move in and take advantage, the lead singer quote-unquote comforting her with alcohol and offering her a safe place away from the fire in his van. Despite Needy's protests, the band are able to take the shocked Jennifer away. A desperate Needy rushes home and calls her boyfriend to help, unsure of what has happened to her friend when there's a sudden knock at the door. As she goes downstairs, she finds Jennifer, only she's very different. Covered in blood and smiling maniacally, Jennifer moves around like Gollum and devours a chicken from Needy's fridge before vomiting black goop all over the floor. It's a genuinely gross scene, and it's not even the black goop that bothers us, it's just the way she eats the chicken. Just like, nah love, use a fork mate. Anyway, freaked the fuck out at what the hell happened the night before, Needy is surprised when the next day at school Jennifer approaches her and is totally normal and acts as if nothing happened. Well, she's kind of normal anyway. She's a lot more mean-spirited than before. Although she was never depicted as a particularly warm person, she does make fun of the fire victims, which is seemingly out of character as Needy acts with surprise at her words. And this, paired with the terrifying sight of her late night visit, Needy suspects something fucky's going on. And she'd be right, because that's when the killings start. It seems that whatever happened to Jennifer the night she was taken away by the band has turned her into some kind of demon, and she begins to seduce men away from populated areas before transforming into a monstrous being and violently consuming their bodies, leaving only the gruesome remains behind. At first unaware that the murders and Jennifer's kidnapping and surreal behaviour are connected, Needy eventually begins to put the pieces together, and it's up to her to put a stop to all the slaughter, while also coming to terms with what this means with regards to her relationship with her best friend. This film was, I believe, a completely misunderstood and mismarketed underperformer at the box office, making only 31mm on its 16mm budget despite heavy marketing costs and a cast that included not only guaranteed ticket seller Fox, but also up-and-comer Amanda Seyfried fresh off Mamma Mia, as well as a screenplay by Diablo Cody, who lit up the Hollywood scene only a couple of years prior with her Academy Award-winning debut screenplay for the massive moneymaker Juno. All of the ingredients for success were there, but for some reason the film just didn't really make an impact. Like, neither financially or with critics, who were initially very lukewarm in their reactions to it. And I'm here to tell you that they were all wrong. Jennifer's Body's a fucking great movie, and 2009 critics were fools! Jokes aside, there is an argument to be made that this film was well ahead of its time. It's impossible to know for sure, but both myself and other defenders of this film would argue that if it were to be released now, perceptions and reactions to it would be a lot different. So why do I think that? Well, back in 2009, no one really got it. And I'm aware that probably sounds like a really smug, hipster, wanky thing to say, like, oh, all these professional critics just didn't get it. But I do think there's actually a genuine case to be made there. I mean, if you just look and read the reviews for this thing from back then, even the ones that enjoyed it, by the way, it's like, what the hell were you guys watching? What? Roger Ebert, for example, the legendary film critic whose work I do genuinely respect and who often had amazing insight into movies, opened his positive review of Jennifer's Body with the sentence, "Just what we were waiting for. Twilight for boys." Dude, what? That is not what this film is. Twilight for boys? What? Now, I'm not saying that I know more than the late great Roger Ebert, but having said that, I cannot fathom this comparison. I just cannot wrap my head around it. Because Roger, dude, mate, I don't know how to tell you this, man, but I don't think this film is for who you think it is. This film has not been made with the goal of titillating 13-year-old boys who once saw Megan Fox wash a car in the Transformers movies and thought it was the greatest thing they've seen in their lives. Because I gotta tell you that this movie is fabulously gay!
Cue gay montage.
We can play boyfriend-girlfriend like we used to.
Thought you only murdered boys.
I go both ways.
This film is super gay! It's so gay! Okay, well, I mean, technically it's bisexual if you want to be pedantic about it, but the point is, it is inherently a film from the female perspective, and it is inherently focused on the complex feelings of sapphic attraction.
And Ebert was seemingly not the only one to just, I guess, totally miss this aspect of it. Anne Horn-Day of Washington Post said that it's the stuff of lurid adolescent distraction. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone opened his whole paragraph-long review by calling it hot, hot, hot. Claudia Pugh of USA Today said the film was not as hot as you hope it would be.
It seemed for some reason like everybody who was reviewing this movie was rating its success or failure on whether it had the capacity to make you horny for Megan Fox or not. And a lot of that was likely down to the marketing.
The film was pushed heavily on her sex appeal and advertised like it was going to be some horror softcore porn. The female lead barely even appears in the trailer, and the hints at the underlying romantic feelings that persist throughout the movie are not touched on at all in it. With a clip from a kiss that in the film is played as intimate, passionate and confusing, here recut and set to sexy music, stripping it of any context and making it seem like the film is just Megan Fox going around fucking anything that moves indiscriminately.
It's no wonder then that audiences reacted to it the way that they did, because quite frankly, they probably got the wrong audience. This film was written by a woman, directed by a woman, told from the perspective of a woman, with feelings for another woman, and the marketers looked at it and went, dudes, that's who this is for.
And granted, obviously dudes can enjoy it, I certainly do, but marketing it almost exclusively with that demographic in mind was a huge mistake. Diablo Cody even commented on this herself. She's quoted as saying executives had said, market this to boys who like Megan Fox. That's who's going to see it. And adds that she was like, no, this is a movie for girls too. That audience, they did not attempt to reach. And it's clear to see what she means by this if you watch it. It's about a victim of a thoughtless, callous and cruel crime at the hands of men committed with little regard for her humanity and bodily autonomy, and carried out in an effort to selfishly further their own career, finding a way to repurpose the image she projects to these men as a tool for her survival. Her inherent sexuality becomes her weapon of choice in her new form, and while obviously as the antagonistic force of the piece she crosses the line and kills innocent people, there is something to be said for this reclamation of the power of her own body when that power had been robbed from her. And this is the key idea for sure. The film is called Jennifer's Body for a reason. It is more than just a clever reference to a song. Needy is also incredibly interesting, and her relationship to Jennifer is so much more complex than it initially got credit for. For one, it's a really refreshing subversion of a horror trope that the mousy, well-studied bookworm isn't some sexless vision of purity. Like, this lass gets laid, and it's totally normal and sound and doesn't condemn her to some fate worse than death. But also bisexual characters in a major motion picture in 2009? That's a fucking rarity.
There are those that may argue, perhaps, as people clearly did read it this way on its initial release, that this part of their relationship isn't apparent, that the kiss they share is merely for titillation. But come on! Do I need to break back out the gay montage? Because I do not understand how anybody can miss this aspect of the movie. It is so clearly apparent that they even state it as a theme immediately following the opening credits.
We're totally lesbian gay.
What? She's my best friend.
One of the reasons I love this film is that Needy has a really compelling arc. She clearly has feelings for Jennifer, regardless of the fact she has a boyfriend, and Jennifer seems to rescind those feelings too in some unusual way. It's interesting, for example, that Jennifer has no intention of killing one guy until Needy expresses a passing interest in him. Then, suddenly it seems he's on the menu. But whatever relationship they do have, it's never 50-50. And I personally read Needy's arc as coming to terms with her sexuality through the wonderful level of trust, intimacy, and sparkles of curious joy her connection to Jennifer gives her, but realizing as well that there are some toxic aspects of that relationship that she needs to pull away from, even though it's difficult and confusing because of all of the romantic feelings lingering on top of those issues. And that's super interesting. This person in her life being a combination of both needed for Needy's journey of self-discovery, but also the thing holding her back that she has to break apart from, that's honestly pretty heavy and complex. There's a lot of emotions at play from both sides of that relationship here. It's a genuinely meaty subtext and seemingly just went right over everyone's heads when it first released. The film is primarily a love story, but it's one that doesn't shy away from all the messiness that formative love has. These characters are both with other people. They maybe don't even know quite yet, or are perhaps in denial that they are bisexual. There's a deep-rooted friendship behind all this that makes the feelings even more confusing. There's a problematic codependency hidden within that friendship that Needy isn't quite strong enough to escape from yet. But at the same time, there's also some elements of their friendship that genuinely are coming from a place of appreciation. There's a lot going on here. This film is way smarter than it initially got given credit for.
Far more than just that not sexy enough Megan Fox thing, this is a wholesome, profound, and intimate look at the trials and tribulations of female friendship and the blurring of that line into romantic intimacy. I think this quote from Cody really sums up what the whole film is about. When interviewed and asked about the kiss scene, Cody said, "There is a sexual energy between the girls which is kind of authentic, because I know when I was a teenage girl, the friendships that I had with other girls were almost romantic. They were so intense, I wanted to sleep at my friend's house every night. I wanted to wear her clothes. We would talk on the phone until our ears ached. I wanted to capture that heightened feeling you get as an adolescent that you don't really feel as a grown-up. You like your friends when you're a grown-up, but you don't need to sleep in the same bed with them and talk to them on the phone until 5 AM every night." And I don't know what you think, but if that love, emotion, and friendship doesn't make this forgotten gem turned cult hit into a perfect fit for Wholesome Halloween, then I don't know what does.
This film is great, and I'm so glad to see it being re-examined so long after its release and becoming the cult hit it probably always deserved to be. It's not just a fun movie with a great teen setting and fun one-liners, it's also a profoundly meaningful one, even if it wasn't credited as such in its initial release, and I highly recommend you give it a go because this film deserves the attention it didn't get all those years ago. Honestly, I think it's kind of a classic, and over time I expect it to be recognised more as one as more and more eyes begin to discover it, so make sure yours are one of the pairs to do so and check it out.
And that concludes our Week of Weird chapter for this marathon. We are now very much in the home stretch of this thing, so from here on out, it's anything goes. Whatever's valid. We're going to have kids movies, we're going to have violent slashers, we're going to have mainstream hits, we're going to have cult classics, anything that's going to get us through this final sprint to the finish. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far, and thank you again for watching today's video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my OnlyDans by clicking the red button below, and remember to like, comment, hit the bell, all that jazz. You know how it is. And I will see you again tomorrow.